Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Horsepower Obsessed. My name is Justin, and today we are going to talk about the C8 Corvette and the fact that GM just issued a service bulletin to address faulty V8 engine valve springs in the 2020 C8 Corvette. Alright guys, so before we get started into today's video, I wanted to give an update for the video I made a couple days ago talking about the electronic brake sensor recall. Now, when I woke up that morning, that information was available to me. The details were not. I wanted to get the information out to you guys as fast as possible because this is kind of a big deal. The details of how many cars were affected did not come out until much later. So the actual number of C8 Corvettes affected by that brake sensor recall is 38. So very unlikely that it's going to affect your C8 Corvette. But I just want to give you guys an update because I want to keep the news flowing as quick as possible, but I also want it to be as accurate as possible. So that information was not available whenever I put that video out, and it has since become available. I wanted to give all you guys an update for it. With that said, there is another issue plaguing the C8 Corvette that we're about to get into right now. Alright guys, so just like the intro said there, GM has officially announced a service bulletin to address the valve spring issue with the 2020 C8 Corvette. It seems like this car cannot get a break. Every time we turn around, something is happening here, which is kind of normal for the first iteration of a brand new, fully redesigned car. Everybody kind of expected there would be some growing pains with the C8 Corvette, and we have seen some. But with all that said, knock on wood, my C8 has been one of the most problem-free cars I have ever owned. Before we continue, I just wanted to mention the sponsor of today's video, and that is going to be Hyperion. So this is a case that you can actually open up and put your key into, and it will block any RFID signals from being transmitted. What that means is it will block the connection between the key and your car, so nobody can steal the code from your key that goes to the car and steal your car. So with the key for the C8 out, we can go ahead and pop it right into this case here and put the top on. And while it's in here, the car will not start. It's going to pop up on the dash there and tell us there's no key found. So very interesting stuff here. I will put a link down in the description below, guys. If you are interested in any of this kind of security for yourself, be sure to check it out. And I'll even put a code down there for you guys to save some money on one. Now, that doesn't mean that there is not problems out there with the C8 Corvettes, but it does seem like GM is taking care of the issues pretty quickly and pretty fairly. But anyway, let's dive into some of the details of what is causing this issue exactly and how GM has decided to go about fixing it. So our friends over at the CorvetteBlogger.com, of course, wrote an article on this information to really just lay it out there for us so we know exactly what's going on. This is an issue that has popped up on my channel a couple different times in the comments section, people talking about the fact that they've had this issue, they've had the check engine light, and GM was looking to take care of it, but they just recently released the actual service bulletin for it. So if you have this same problem, you can go to the dealership and reference the service bulletin and they will take care of it for you. Now, the service bulletin number I will put right up here on screen, but it is TSB PIP 5752A. And that is the number you would want to reference in order to get this taken care of under warranty, of course. The CorvetteBlogger.com goes on to say that the service bulletin was issued after GM has identified a bad batch of valve springs that have been used across GM's V8 lineup, which includes the L87, LT1, LT2, LT4, L82, L84, and L8T engines. Owners with a bad valve spring may experience a check engine light along with the engine misfiring and making some other strange noises. So, again, guys, if you have a C8 Corvette and you are experiencing any of these problems, definitely take it to the dealership. They will take care of it for you and you will not have any further issues. So straight from GM, this is a problem with a bad batch of valve springs. So this is not something that's necessarily going to continue to plague the Corvette, but it is something that can easily be fixed. So that's definitely great, but at the same time, it needs to be taken care of because they don't necessarily say how many of these were a problem either. But they do go on to say that it happened to the vehicles built between June 1st and September 15th. So about a 2.5 month run worth of bad valve springs. With that said, my C8 Corvette was built in July of 2020, so yeah, I might just have this issue. But so far, so good. knock on wood. For the LT87, LT1, LT2, and LT4 engines, the technicians are instructed to replace the faulty valve spring and also perform a cylinder leakage test on the affected cylinder. The bulletin adds that if no cylinder leakage is observed, it will be necessary to replace all valve springs on both banks if the vehicle was built between June 1st and September 15th, 2020, like I said. On the L82, L84, and L8T engines, dealer technicians are required to replace the faulty valve spring only. What's really interesting is that the service bulletin also asks the technicians to return all the valve springs back to Detroit for inspection. That's interesting because they want to know exactly why these things are failing. They obviously don't know what's causing the problem just yet. They just know it's out of a certain batch. So it's pretty cool that they are interested in actually knowing why they failed versus just throwing it to the wind and saying, yeah, it's a bad batch, no worries. So if you guys have a C8 Corvette and you're having an issue like this, you will actually see a check engine light with the codes P0300, P0106, or P0506. So basically, if you see any of those check engine lights, take it to the dealership, have the service bulletin done, and you are good to go. Where things get a little dicey for me is at the very bottom of the actual service bulletin where it says, if you determine that the engine has cylinder leakage, it will be necessary to inspect further to determine the extent of the engine damage to determine correct repair required. That's scary because if this particular service bulletin actually causes damage to the engine, you could be looking at something as extreme as an entire new engine in your already brand new 2020 C8 Corvette. That's a little tough, but nonetheless, I don't think that that has happened to anybody yet, and I doubt that it actually will, because typically the guys with the Corvettes, you're not exactly going down the road beating the heck out of it while the check engine light's on. So, like I said, guys, if you see something like this, definitely take it to the dealership, get it done so you don't further damage that car. But that is going to do it for today's video, guys. So if you liked what you saw, give me a big thumbs up. If you have any questions about the C8 Corvette or any of the recalls or service bulletins that have been popping up lately, let me know in the comments section down below, or shoot me an email, horse.power.obsessed@gmail.com, and I'll make sure your questions get answered. If you guys haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do. I'm going to have loads of C7 and C8 content coming you are not going to want to miss, as well as news, updates, and everything you can think of with the new C8 performance models coming out. And as always, guys, I will catch you in the next upload.